Hi, I'm Dr. Broussard with the Waggin Trained Veterinary Clinic, and in today's segment we are going to talk about puppy vaccine schedules and the vaccines themselves. My assistant Cole and I have put together a list of questions that we get commonly asked. We're going to run through that list and hopefully that'll help give you a better understanding. Cole?
Dr. Broussard, what vaccinations does my puppy need?
Well, most vaccinations for puppies come in a combination, and the big ones that most people are familiar with and are probably still the most important are distemper virus and parvovirus. That doesn't mean that's the only two that your dog needs, because there's other things like coronavirus, not the same one, a different canine coronavirus, hepatitis, leptospirosis. Those are all things that can be included as well, but distemper and parvo is probably the two most common that we still do see from time to time in practice on young unvaccinated puppies. So I think those are the most important ones.
What are core vaccines?
The core vaccines are probably most of the ones I just mentioned. Core vaccines are the ones that should be given to every puppy regardless of their lifestyle, regardless of what your intentions with that dog are. And I'll explain a little bit better. So core, again, parvo, distemper, every dog should get those ones. At the same time, there are things called noncore vaccines, and those are a little bit more dependent on what your dog's lifestyle is. Two examples I can think of right out of the gate. One is leptospirosis. Leptospirosis is usually a bacterial disease picked up from rodents. Well, if your dog's never out in the field or in places where rodents seem to frequent, you might argue that that one's non-core. Do I give it to my dogs? Yeah, but they're outside hunting with me quite a bit. Another one is Lyme disease. Depending on where you live and how outdoors, so to speak, your dogs are, maybe that's not a core vaccine. The only way they get exposed to Lyme is if they're exposed to a tick who carries it, and that's in certain regions of the country and outdoors, so that would be considered a non-core vaccine.
How often does my puppy need to go to the veterinarian for puppy vaccinations?
Okay. So for starters, first set of vaccines, I would normally give a puppy between the 6 and 8 week range for the first set. When they are young and they nurse and they get colostrum from their mothers, the antibodies that they receive from their mom usually last in the 9 to 10 week, I'd probably say 10 week would be my answer, range before those antibodies start to wane, okay? We don't know that for certain, and it's not real feasible to get a blood sample and send off antibody titers on a 6 or 7 or 8 week old puppy. So we normally start them early just in case they didn't get adequate antibodies. The second part of that question was how often do they need to be seen for vaccines? I don't give vaccines in puppies any closer than 3 weeks apart. So if they had one at, let's just say 7 weeks, the next one I would recommend doing is at 10 weeks. The next one after that would be 13 weeks, no sooner than that. If it's a week or so later because your schedule or something came up in family, that's fine. You just don't want them any closer together than that. And my rule of thumb at the end of the day is I want them to have a minimum of 2 sets of vaccines after 10 weeks. That's because by then those maternal antibodies are gone, they're making their own antibodies to your vaccine, and they need to see it at least twice to get an adequate response with antibody production.
Are there any risks associated with vaccinations?
Yeah, unfortunately the honest answer is yes, of course there is. I mean, you're putting a foreign substance into a living creature. Animals are going to react differently, no different than people might do. So yes, it's hard to predict which vaccine they're going to react to because, again, every animal is different. But the most common ones that we'll see reactions to are things like rabies and sometimes lepto that I mentioned earlier. It's, that old expression, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I am one of those guys that really like to vaccinate my own dogs because I would much rather take that rare chance of them having a vaccine reaction but know that they're protected. Because I can tell you, as a veterinarian, I've seen too many puppies die of parvovirus right in front of me that could have been prevented with adequate vaccination.
Does my puppy need vaccinations even if I keep them inside?
Yeah, I think so, because some of these, we don't live in a bubble. Even in this world of coronavirus, we don't live in a bubble. We are going to be exposed to airborne pathogens, things like that. Parvo, for example. Yeah, if your dog never goes outside, not to say that's great, but okay, if that's your choice. But parvo can still find its way inside. Why? You go outside. What happens if you are around another dog and there's viral particles on that dog? Maybe they have a bowel movement or had a bowel movement that you didn't see. You step in it, it's on your clothes, something like that. If that viral particle makes its way back into your house, well, guess who's going to find it? Your dog will. Is it as common in indoor dogs? No, of course not, but it's still possible. And once again, like I said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, especially when you're dealing with potentially fatal viruses like parvo. So.
What if I miss one of my puppy's vaccinations?
Again, I kind of briefly alluded to this, not a big deal. You don't want to be months late. Again, keep in mind, guys, we're talking about puppy vaccinations. We're talking about animals that have next to no immune system. So you want to get them up and running on schedule as best you can. But if you are late, as I mentioned earlier, a week or even a couple of weeks, I mean, hey, life happens, I get it. But I would make every effort to try to get them back on schedule as soon as you can. What I mean by that is, just because you missed a week or two and don't think, oh, that's it, he's not no, just pick up where you left off. And let's make sure your veterinarian will tell you how often they need to be seen or if and when it needs to be boosted again. But if you do miss them, just call the office, get them back in, and make sure they're protected moving forward. Okay? Well, guys, that does it for today's questions. I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you should have any other questions, reach out to us. You can call us here at the office. You can come on by, or you can reach us on social media that way if that's easier. But again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.